Okay, here's what's similar between the Wing and the X32. They both have faders, and that's kind of where it stops. Everything's in a different spot, and it's laid out somewhat similarly than it was before. Still have the vocals here, so vocals 1 through 4, acoustic, bass, stereo electric, takes up one fader now, which is kind of nice. You don't have to link faders anymore. Stereo keys and stereo tracks. Tracks are being controlled through the band DCA. Next page, they're in banks of 12, by the way. So that was, banks of 12. So then all of our kick drum, or all of our drums through the aux drums, and then clicking cues. And then on the next page, which is 25 to 36, of our lav mics and our MC mics on the third layer. And then the fourth one has our talkback channel and also auxes. So auxes 1 and 2, 3 and 4, 5 and 6, 7 and 8. And those are in these sections right there. From, let's say we're in rehearsal and we want to do a gain check or process the vocal mic. The signal flows top to bottom through this channel strip. So this is an overview. Then it hits the gain stage, where you can also apply filtering like the low cut, the high cut, and you could do a tilt EQ. It's also where channel input delay is, and gain. So gain is this knob, or on the screen you can move that up and down, so that's changing the gain. Phantom power, you have to hold down in order to get that to go. And then, so we have 45 decibels of gain, and then we have 18 decibels of trim. So I think the idea here is you set your gain to as much as you need, and then you can do some fine tuning with trim. Or if you don't have enough gain, then you can just add trim like that. We really haven't ran out of gain unless it's someone at CR and they're talking really quietly with the mic far away from them. So usually 40 to 45 is enough. Even 37 to 45 is enough. Up next, so out of the gain stage hits an EQ. And for your EQ, it has a touchscreen, so you can click on one of the selectors, move it around left and right, up and down. And then to adjust the Q, you keep this finger holding down on the selection you want, and then you bring in another finger. Oh, just kidding. You bring in another finger, and that narrows it or widens it. So that's a really fast way to just grab it, make it wider, make it narrower, and then you can put it wherever you want. And you'll notice there's 4 bands of EQ to work with, plus 2 shelf filters, plus low cut and high cut, right? Plus your tilt EQ. And tilt EQ just tilts the whole signal. It looks like it's pivoting around 800 hertz or so. So yeah, we have a lot of options for EQ, which is nice. Okay, so after the EQ, we go into, for this vocal channel, we go into the LA2A model. And this is a compressor. And if you're not familiar with how to use these, there's a ton of videos online how to work with them. But essentially, you set your peak reduction, and we're looking for like 2 or 3 dB of peak reduction, maybe like 2 really, 1 to 2. And then you use gain just to make up however much you compressed. You have to be really careful with this because the click that you hear, like the metronome and the in-ears, you can hear that through the microphones the more compression you have, because it brings up background noise. If you wanted to turn this off, just off button or on button right there. And then so we go from LA2A into LA76. This is another compressor, and there's a ton of videos online on how to use this one as well. But for the most part, I think I have these dialed in. If you set your gain properly, it should hit these compressors the right amount. So yeah, this compressor is backwards to most compressors in that 7 is a fast attack and number 1 is a slow attack, and same thing for release. Usually it's the opposite for compressors. And then we have another insert that we're not using. And then after that insert, so these are all pre-fader. And then right there, this little line is the post-fader, or is the fader mark. And then this is the post-fader insert, which is pitch correction. And we're doing just very light pitch correction only when it's needed. And to enable that, we have it on all 4 of the vocals. And to quickly enable that, over here in the user section, we have these 4 keybinds, and those are just, mic 1, 2, 3, and 4. And that's how you enable auto-tune on and off really quickly. Like I said, we don't use it unless I hear something that's like, oh, that was kind of pitchy. Yeah, there's the channel strip. One more down from that, this is how you pan. So you just grab a tab up here. You can move that left or right. If you have a stereo input, say like an electric guitar, you can change how wide the stereo field is by moving these, and it does some like clever delay panning to make that feel wider without level panning it. And that's an interesting tool that you could use and experiment with if you have time for it. Okay, so the very last page is our sends page, and that is just showing you where everything is being sent to. These are all of our buses or subgroups. Okay. Now to our DCAs. Again, vocal band drums, Spotify, CG1, verb, and delay. Remember, the band is, the tracks are coming in on the band DCA. And CG1 stands for Computer Graphics 1. I just wanted to change the terminology that we use there so that it makes more sense on Planning Center and when we're running a second computer graphics machine that might have an audio component, such as the LED video wall, if we want to process it differently or do something a little bit more complex than just running it straight there. So in that case, CG1 is always going to be our ProPresenter machine, and then CG2 would be our LED wall machine. And I don't have it set up because we don't have the LED wall set yet, but come VBS week, we'll get CG1, CG2. Yep, and then we got verb and delay. Those are just DCAs for different mix buses that we're sending our vocals to. So now we move over to this section. When you boot the board up, sometimes it will be in this configuration. It depends on who ran it last. But the very top one, we're in main matrix. So this is your main fader. And it's usually just at unity, the entire time. And then we have our talkback channel, and that's how we are getting talkback to the band. And speaking of talkback, we have just a handheld microphone sitting right here. And the talkback section is up here now. So A is a momentary button, and B is a latch. So you can press B, do all your talking, set your inputs, do whatever, talk to the band. And then we have our talk level dialed in right now, so don't touch that or else it'll start clipping in the band's ears, because we had to do a couple workarounds to get this to work. We're no longer sending to specific people, it's just the whole band, A, momentary, or B, latching. Okay. This is also where you can dim your headphones and go to a mono mix. That's really helpful to check phase on inputs. And then back to this section, you also have DCAs, inputs, auxes, bus masters, and user. So I want you to live in this user section over here, and this is where we keep our lav mics and MC mics. So basically, after you boot the console up, you get your main set at 0, hop down to user, and there's all of those inputs, and those are just being, they're hot right away. So as soon as you push the fader up, those are going to the PA. There's no group that they're passing through. Those are routed directly to the main left-right bus. And speaking of routing, all of our channels are not going to the main left-right bus. They first flow into a subgroup that is on the second page of the bus master. So all of our channels flow through these subgroups, and then these subgroups hit the main left-right, and then the main left-right hits a matrix for main left-right, subs, fills if we had them, and broadcast. I don't want anyone really touching these levels on the matrices, just showing you where they're at to be transparent. Okay. So our bus masters. So these are actually subgroups, so we cannot change the send level of any channel going into them. And we have one for kick, one for snare, toms, and then the metal is anything metal on the drum kit, so like cymbals and hi-hat. Everything band is in one, which I might later divide up a little bit more, and then we have a vocal group. And we're basically sending into subgroups because I wanted to do bus compression on all of these different groups of instruments. And the only reason we're able to do that on this console is now we are processing in-ear monitors on another console in the back, and that's the rack-mounted X32. And the band connects to that one, and they share whatever gain we have set up here at this console. So that's how we're processing in-ears. So if the band needs you to make an in-ear adjustment, you'd have to get the iPad out, connect to the rack-mounted X32, make an adjustment. But most of the time they've been pretty self-sufficient for the last couple of weeks, so I think they'll be okay. All right, these groups are feeding, let's see. So the vocal group, if I go to the sends page, we are feeding the vocal verb and the vocal delay at unity pre-fader, okay? And I'm gonna use these arrows to tab back. So now we're on bus 1 through 8. This was buses 9 through 16. So bus 1 through 8, those are feeding into our different post-fader buses here. So we have the vocal delay, which I have these faders down just, based on how much I wanted. And when you control the DCA on this page for, say we wanted to bring the verb up, well, this fader is bringing up this post-fader delay. So that DCA is tied to this bus. Sorry, with the camera. If that makes sense. So that DCA, vocal verb, is controlling this post-fader bus. And then we have a couple other things. So we have the delay, the vocal verb, instrument reverb, which isn't set up yet, and we have our drum reverb. And the drum reverb is not controlled by a fader, it's just always in the background. And then we have our broadcast, and this is where we're sending the audio for the live stream. And that broadcast bus hits a matrix, and it goes into this, and then that matrix hits an output, and that goes over to the live stream. Last thing to talk about routing is where is the lobby speaker, where's the lobby fader, and we are on the main matrix page right now, and if you tab over, I actually have 8 stereo matrices, so there's the lobby. So it's on the main matrix, tab over one, or I guess you would press this button, tab over one, and then this is the lobby. So if anyone's like, hey, turn up the lobby, turn on the lobby, that's how you get there. One final step, and I guess it's actually the first step, is how do you turn it on and off? Well, on is easy. It's just a switch on the back of the console. And if you feel around back there, it's right by the power cord, kind of like the X32, but just buried more. And then off actually has a procedure that I want you to go through every time you turn it off, because it prevents the speakers from popping, and then it also turns off phantom power. So you go to setup, and then over here you go to shutdown, and it's going to say this will mute any audio and switch off 48 volts, and all settings are going to be saved. And you go confirm, and then it says it's safe to shut off the console now, so now you can go back and flip it off, and then if you wanted to reboot, you could hold setup and press home. But we're good to turn it off now, and let's see, there it is. I think that's everything for the most part that you need to know to run sound. I probably left something out, but you'll do great.